Okay, so I did a 1-year update on what it's like to own an Airbnb remotely and how well that's going with professional management. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out on YouTube. I think it's on Twitter and a couple other socials. I did a video that illustrates it, kind of like a presentation, and then I did one that's just me talking on the couch, but couch has more details. So the other thing I wanted to cover, though, in the same area of subject matter is the challenges of cash flowing in Airbnb. This depends on your circumstances, of course, but I just wanted to run you through what we were dealing with because I think it might help somebody out there because it's quite the learning curve. So basically, we already own a house. We've been married for a while. We have 1 kid. It was a stretch to do a lake house. We were kind of doing it for a business investment and for my health. So we bought a house that was worth about $250K in a less popular but recovering beach town on Lake Michigan. So just for comparison, since Michigan's really different than somewhere like California, the most expensive neighborhood in the area is Beechwood and Bluffton, which is right on the city beach, and those houses are about double on average. So this is more of a city neighborhood, but it's very close to all of the rebuilding stuff downtown, Muskegon Lake, Heritage Landing, Adelaide Point, Furniture Factory, that whole area. So there's tons of stuff going in. So in our case, the trick was, how do you cash flow a brand new Airbnb? Well, professional property management would be number one. They advertised it properly. They already knew people. They already had a client list. They already had their, social media going, and they do a great job taking care of the place. Everything's clean. Everything's taken care of, no matter what it is. So that's a blessing. However, we did that mainly because we were required to. A lot of cities and townships now have short-term rental, STR, regulations on Airbnbs. So there's either a limited number of licenses, so the whole housing stock near the lake doesn't go to tourism, or what are the other conditions? Some places you can only go downtown in certain districts, or like a second floor condo over a mixed use building now. That's tricky to find, to purchase. So definitely do that homework first. And then the second trick was, because we had to have the property managers, since one of the requirements with our local STR regulation was having a local contact available within like 30 minutes or 50 miles or something like that, for any client call, even in the middle of the night. And we live like 3 hours away, so that would be a stretch. So they also handle like the license renewals and everything. I love it. All the paperwork in terms of background checks and guests. They basically give me a cut after handling the finances and all of the maintenance. So the challenge with that is that they take 25% plus maintenance costs, and then every time they clean, it's like $200 or something. They're very thorough though. So normally that's tacked on to a guest stay, but I have to take care of like the lawn care and utilities and stuff like that. So 25% unfortunately kind of was my profit margin. I had like a 30% profit margin on this and thought it'd be a slam dunk. So the first year we were just eating those costs to get going, and basically paying for the mortgage out of, we were going to use some cash we had, and we ended up using a HELOC. It doesn't matter, you can do your own thing, but those are 2 great options if you have them. Any stock that's not doing particularly well in the market that you have extra to take out, you could use for that. Or if you are purchasing multiple properties quickly, then a business loan is probably the best way to go. One more thing I wanted to cover is that it really matters whether you are an Airbnb, a bed and breakfast, a hotel, a motel, maybe something even more different like glamping. I was looking at that at one point, like a tiny house community or agro-tourism. Everybody's got different regulations for that stuff. So hotels generally have more safety and inspection stuff going on up front and regularly. Airbnbs have that more often now. Like there's a city inspection before you get approved in the city that we're in. But yeah, you got to do all that homework, and you got to know what you qualify as. Because if you, for example, if you live on the property but you're renting it out through Airbnb, you know, in certain circumstances you might qualify as a bed and breakfast or something, and that could be good or bad depending on what you're going for. Sometimes it's different for taxes, you know, there's a bunch of stuff going on there you have to look into. So yeah, so the first year we ate the costs. The second year, which is this last year, we had fantastic occupancy. I think we had 85% occupancy rate, which is great. Can't be a whole lot higher than that, honestly, without being the most popular, you know, thing out there. And we're not right on the beach, so I think that's great. But the second year they lowered the rates because our company, the property managers, was taken over by another company that uses an AI tool for recommending optimal rates for optimal bookings. So we thought, okay, we'll give it a try, because we're not going to get a chance to use a tool like that on our own as mom and pops. But the result was that we kind of broke even in the same place. So I don't think it was a bad choice up front, because you really do need to build your client list and get people in the house before you can do more. But that's something to consider. When we first ran the numbers on the house, it looked a lot simpler than that. It looked a lot easier to make a profit sooner. So you're gonna want a little runway on that, or some options. So before I go, one thing you can do that can ameliorate that we did at the recommendation of our agent, was to get a winter renter. So if you have a short-term rental in a tourism area like we do, you can rent it out between Memorial Day and Labor Day for premium, whatever the local rate is. So say it's, you know, $200 to $300 a night for a small house or something that's not on the beach. And we were charging that like the first year, and then it went down to closer to $100 the second year, in order to book some off season and get it out there. But we did get a winter renter, so you can do this. Depending on your regulation and how your personal taxes work, and this will affect your renter's insurance. So like whether or not you have a policy that's just for occasional beach house type rentals versus like an actual rental property, can change your renting rate. So anyway, check with your real estate agent or your insurance agent on that. What was I saying? So yeah, so the second year we broke even, and the last thing I wanted to cover is that the reason I mentioned the neighborhood is we have an unusual situation in that we got a house that is appreciating in value in a neighborhood that is being rebuilt after a long economic slump. So that means we weren't really comfortable charging premium rates up front, because there's this big old construction site and an abandoned factory across the street, and a little bit of other blight on the other side of the road. I'm absolutely delighted to see that is getting cleaned up faster than I even thought possible. Not kidding. I'm not one to, well, I guess I might sell you on it if I want you to rent it enough, but like I'm not generally one personality-wise to like gloss over that stuff. I'd be pretty blunt about it, and I was a little concerned. So that's fantastic, but that means in the next couple of years we can probably charge higher rates, because the whole neighborhood is being fixed up. Like it's a little sketchy on one side, but there's like 3 or 4 houses just on my street within 2 blocks that are being renovated. There's like 500 condos going in across the street, which fits a lot better than it sounds. It's actually a huge space. And I noticed that they're putting in like detached condos, I think you call them, on the other side near Muskegon Lake, on the other side of Shoreline. And the Adelaide Point condos are almost done, which run, I think, $500,000 up to $2 million a piece. So we're going from slumpy neighborhood straight into gentrification. But I'm not going to use that like it's a bad word right now, because this neighborhood absolutely had nowhere else to go but up. And there's restaurants coming back, and festivals, farmers markets. I think there's like an Irish music festival in September, a Christian music festival sometime in the summer, fall. All kinds of stuff going on. So we are, wow, okay, I just ran into a wedding. Not literally, but almost. So random living in a place with barns. They're all used for weddings now. So, oh, actually, that's a good point. One last thing. You need to think when you're doing some sort of rental space or Airbnb whether you're going to allow parties and events, because usually you will end up in a tangle with your township or your neighbors if there's a lot of noise from things like weddings. So when I was asking around about the regulations in different places to get this Airbnb started, and even looking into my own property, because I own some land next door, and I thought, I wonder if I could build like a writer's cabin and rent it out like a little artist colony. Well, artist colonies have their own tax category, aka like hopeless case. So that's not the best choice, unfortunately, as much as that's like a dream for everybody, including me. But the township was like, all right, well, you can do pretty much anything you want. We're not really going to enforce any regulations. You can farm in your subdivision. You can do whatever you want, as long as there are no weddings, because that has become quite the point of contention locally, because there's a wedding barn right next to the township hall. And it's beautiful, but I imagine it's quite loud and annoying sometimes. So, yeah, definitely get to know your local zoning regulation people, whatever they're called, and definitely get to know your city planning people, and basically city hall, township hall, those types of people in the areas where you're looking. And also ask them if anything might be changing soon, because if you're somewhere like Michigan, it's changing by the month. And some places are hostile to Airbnbs, and some places are very, very accommodating. So you just have to kind of make it work for your circumstances. So hope that wasn't too long, but those are the things that I wish somebody could have told me up front, and I'm super grateful for the help that I did get. We have a great agent. If you're in West Michigan looking for a beach house in the sort of Grand Rapids, Muskegon area, highly recommend Justin Moorhead. He was fantastic. He gets it. And all right, one last thing. When you are looking for an agent, you really have to look for somebody who is familiar with real estate investment trusts, REITs, investment in general, any sort of conglomerate setup, bed and breakfasts, and local regulations on rental properties, whether it's multifamily, which is like a apartment building, versus the short-term rentals, so long-term versus short-term. Because when I talk to other agents, people in West Michigan are very, very familiar with tourism, because it's like half their economy over there by the lake. But you can get some real old-fashioned business thinking, I guess. All the stuff that kind of led Detroit to decline. So I did run into what I'll just call some stinkers when I was looking for agents. People who were like laughing at me for not having enough money to buy on the lake. And I was like, okay, that's not the attitude I'm looking for. So look for somebody, I hate to say relatively young, because that's ageist, but look for somebody in a young thinking circle of people. Somebody who understands investment, technology, remote business, tools like AI, just something, child. Because, yeah, super, super grateful that we got somebody who could really answer our questions. Because anytime you have a question come up that people don't know how to answer, which can happen with anybody, our agent included, you can really go in circles if you don't have the right people around. So definitely build up your corral or whatever of an attorney for either real estate and or estate planning, which is tricky to find the crossover, trust me on that one. If you have like a workplace program that offers you free attorneys, like some corporations do, go for somebody like that, because if they're local, then they understand your local laws and lifestyle estate planning type questions, but they also understand how to work with remote or I guess city-centric diaspora employees. I don't know what you call us, but anyway, my husband has a remote job with a tech company, so lucky, yes. He works very hard for it, but I was also absolutely delighted recently to discover that we had an attorney on our list of people we could see for personal estate planning, where you find out, like, where do I put this house in my estate or trust or whatever? How do I make sure the liability is low for my personal assets if a guest, falls and sues me, that kind of stuff. I found somebody who could answer all those questions, like, do you put the house in a trust? Do you not? Does that make the mortgage come due if the mortgage company feels like messing with you? All kinds of really helpful things where other people are like, I just don't quite know what to tell you about this. So that's my last tip, and good luck. Happy house hunting. It's super fun.